Morning, my dear students, and once again, welcome back to the English online classes. I hope you people have gone through the first video of this very second lesson of yours, which imparts a beautiful lesson, beautiful moral to each and every person who reads this lesson. Yes, it's we are not afraid to die if we can all be together. My dear children, in this a very beautiful message is being rendered, and that is about family bond. Now, not putting too much of emphasis on the moral values, because about it already I spoke in quite a length in the first video. Let me have a quick recall of what we did in the first video, and then let's proceed with a little part of the rest of the chapter. In this, we people have seen till now that there was a businessman, a 37-year-old man, who along with his family, which comprises of his wife Mary, a son Jonathan, who was 6 years old, and daughter Suzanne, 7, they all set out on a sea voyage in July 1976 from their home, that was Plymouth, England. And the purpose of their journey was to duplicate a round the world voyage, which was done somewhat 200 years ago by an explorer named Captain James Cook. It was a long dreamt thing by Mary and her husband, means the narrator of the entire story for us. And it was something that they always dreamt of doing, and for this they had spent around 16 years, each and every moment of their leisure time, basically practicing and perfecting, bringing perfection to the sea skills. Because for going to a sea voyage, as I said in the first video, you have to be a kind of a practiced person. You have to be a skilled person. An amateur or a unskilled person who has got no knowledge about the water and the obstacles to deal with cannot just get out of the house, out of the bed, and go for a sea voyage. Then we have seen that they had a boat. They got a boat done, professionally done, means the skilled laborers or the skilled people have made this boat, which they have named as Wave Walker, and basically it is a somewhat 23-meter long and a 30-ton wooden hulled beauty. And they have checked out the basically the efficiency of this particular boat in the roughest weather in the British seawater. Then they set out on their journey. It has been said that their journey consisted of, or you can say that it was of somewhat 105,000 kilometers for about 3 years. Out of that, the first part went off very well, means from Plymouth to Africa to Cape Town. Now, when they were going to leave Cape Town, they were actually going to enter into the most roughest sea, that is the southern Indian Ocean. So, to deal with any of the obstacles that will come across, what they have done, they hired 2 crewmen. Okay, about crew I have already told you in the previous video. So 2 people they have hired. They got really a very important part to play in the entire story. So one was an American named as Larry Vigil, and the other one was a Swiss fellow named Herb Sagler. Now when they have set out on their journey from Cape Town, the very second day when they had set out from Cape Town, they found that the strong wind started blowing over there, and not only the strong wind, even the waves were also very high, and this was really of a great concern. Means not the strong winds, but the high waves, which he had said to be around some 15 meters high, literally as high as the mainmast. If you remember, I showed you a pic, and also I told you what the mainmast means. Then it has been said by the narrator that December 25th, they were around 3,500 kilometers east of Cape Town, and they celebrated Christmas with a Christmas tree with the hope that as the new year was approaching and they enter into the new year, the weather, which was very strong, seems to be very angry with strong and hard winds blowing, may deteriorate, means the weather may become good, some change will come. And then the narrator says that yes, definitely change came, but it was a worse one. Then we have seen by the dawn of January 2 in the morning, the waves, it became more gigantic, more big. And then they were sailing with a storm jib only, and still they have covered an 8 knots, 8 miles something. And then they felt that every time when their ship or otherwise their boat rises up, they could see only an enormous sea front of their eyes. Means they could see only water and water everywhere, nothing else. And the strong breeze and the water splashing, it was really painful for the ears. Then for safety's sake, they tied a mooring rope to the stern. I have told you what a stern means. They tied up a mooring rope to the stern, and then with the help of that mooring rope, they double lashed, means double security they did, of all the items which were there on the ship, whether it was basically the life raft drill or lifelines or the jackets or the oilskins, and then there had been a waiting. This is what we people have done in the previous video related to this chapter. Now let's continue further. The first indication of impending disaster came at about 6 p.m. with an ominous silence. The wind dropped and the sky immediately grew dark. Then came a growing roar, and an enormous cloud towered aft of the ship. With horror, I realized that it was not a cloud, but a wave like no other I had ever seen. It appeared perfectly vertical and almost twice the height of the other waves, with a frightful breaking crest. My dear children, I, in the beginning, made a request to you, that is, this particular chapter I actually wanted to teach you with your physical presence inside the classroom, but though we are prohibited from doing that, still I want you people to feel this chapter, and for that you have to place yourself in the place of the narrator. You have to imagine a sea voyage and then think that when you are on the deck of the ship and then suddenly the atrocious weather, the wild weather has turned even more worse, and still more worse was waiting for you. So now you just imagine that you are on the deck of the ship and all these things you are witnessing with your own eyes. Now just check it out. The first indication of impending disaster, impending means the forthcoming disaster, means which was coming up fast. The first indication of it came at about 6 p.m. with an ominous silence. Ominous silence here means a silence which prevails before something wrong going to happen or something negative going to happen. So an ominous silence was there, where deadly silence was there, and then this was the first indication that something very disastrous is going to happen. Then the wind dropped. The sky suddenly became very dark, and there a growing roar, means जैसे हाथी चिंगाड़ता है या फिर शेर दहाड़ता है, बिल्कुल उसी तरह का दहाड़ जो होता है वो पानी का होता है. So a big loud roar was there, and then suddenly he felt, the narrator, now you think if you are there, suddenly an enormous cloud towered aft of the ship, means suddenly it became so dark and had a feeling that a big cloud is right on the top. Aft means right on the top over the ship. It is being, the ship is being, you can say that, hovered over by a big cloud and it was very dark. So that's why suddenly everything turned very dark around. With horror, I realized that it was not a cloud, but a wave like no other I had ever seen. Oh my god, yes, that's true. The narrator, when he felt the darkness and he thought that suddenly a big cloud is right towering, means right overhead, we see, the same way, right over the head of the ship. But when he looked carefully, it was really horrifying what he saw, because it was not a cloud. It was not a cloud, my dear children. Instead, it was a big wave. Just imagine, how can a wave be so big to be right over the head of the ship, turning everything dark around? So horrifying it would have been. Yes, and the narrator says that I had never ever seen a wave like that. The wave was vertical in its look, means perfectly vertical to the ship, and then almost twice the height of the other waves which he had seen. Twice the height means earlier he said 15 meters, so that means somewhat 30 plus. Just imagine 30 meters high wave, and the tip, you can see the phrase over there, frightful breaking crest. Here frightful breaking crest means the tip of that wave was very frightening. It looks like as if though it was about to break open everything that will come on its way when it falls down. That's how the entire wave looked like. The roar increased to a thunder as the stern moved up the face of the wave, and for a moment I thought we might ride over it. But then a tremendous explosion shook the deck. A torrent of green and white water broke over the ship. My head smashed into the wheel, and I was aware of flying overboard and sinking below the waves. I accepted my approaching death, and as I was losing consciousness, I felt quite peaceful. Is our story going to end here? No. Lot is waiting for us. Let's see. Now, after the description of that dreadful wave is being given, the narrator is saying that the roar increased to a thunder. Means till now only the growling noise was there, that roaring was there. Now it has turned into a thunder. Bijli ki gadgadahat ke saman. And then, now you just imagine, the ship or the boat is on the surface of the water, and suddenly the stern of the ship, means the fine upper part or the tip of the ship, or you can say the front part of the ship, that moves up along with the face of the wave, and it's like the boat was literally vertical in position. And then for a moment he thought that maybe they will be able to ride over that wave, but never it happened like that. Instead of that, what happened? The big wave which was right towering over the head, suddenly what happened is that a tremendous, means a terrible explosion shook the deck. Deck, you all of you have understood maybe. The deck is the that part, that open area where people come and stand and view outside of a ship. Now here suddenly the entire deck shook because an explosion has taken place, a boom. And then what has happened is that a torrent of green and white water, a torrent means you can say a brutal, or you can say a treacherous, or you can say that it was a very dangerous green and white water. Green and white, I hope you might have understood. Water has been described in that way. It broke over the ship. Actually what has happened is that a big wave, a dangerous wave has taken its turn and it has hit the deck of the ship. That was the explosion, reason of explosion. And because of this shaking, or because of this sudden attack of the torrent, Sudden attack doesn't mean that the wave deliberately came and attacked. It was one of the, you can say that, situation that generally arises in the sea voyage. And because of this explosion and the shaking of the deck, our narrator, who was standing controlling the wheel. Wheel means, you might have seen that the ships and all are having a wheel to control the direction. So he was near the wheel. So what happened when the boat shook? His head, it went and hit the wheel. That's what it has been said. My head smashed into the wheel. Smashed doesn't mean that it was broken into pieces. It went and hit the wheel, and thoda filmy hai, a little of it, that filmy type. And then he was aware of one thing. What? His head hit the wheel and he went flying overboard and sinking below the waves. Means he went flying in the air. Overboard means he left the deck over the ship. He went flying and then he fell into the waves. Means he was into the water. He understood, I'm going to die. And moreover, he was losing his consciousness. And while it was happening, he felt quite peaceful. See, it's natural that when the time comes when you feel that you cannot do anything, it's not there in your hand. Obviously, it's like people drop the weapons. So here also same thing. He thought that there is no use of fighting. And he felt quite peaceful, and moreover, he was losing his consciousness. Further, I think these are what called as miracles, Unexpectedly, my head popped out of the water. A few meters away, Wave Walker was near capsizing. Her masts almost horizontal. Then a wave hurled her upright. My lifeline jerked taut. I grabbed the guardrails and sailed through the air into Wave Walker's main boom. Subsequent waves tossed me around the deck like a rag doll. My left ribs cracked, my mouth filled with blood and broken teeth. Somehow I found the wheel, lined up the stern for the next wave, and hung on. Yes, a little, I told you in the beginning itself, in the previous para, that seems to be a little filmy, but then maybe, and that's why we call it that real life is made out of the real life. So these are all experiences of those adventurous people who had just by a line of action has ditched the death and got saved. Here also same thing happened with our narrator. He was sinking into the water. He accepted his death. He was peaceful, losing his consciousness. Suddenly, unexpectedly, his head popped out of the water. And when his eyes were out, he saw that a few meters away from him, the Wave Walker was near capsizing. Means it was sinking, the Wave Walker. And you know how the Wave Walker was? Exactly like how I said about the Titanic. You know how Titanic drowned in the water, in the sea. It was like vertically going down. And here, the Wave Walker's mast, I hope you remember I told you about the mast, that pole which is there in the center of the ship or on the one side of the ship from where the sail is tied up. Its mast was almost horizontal. Horizontal means it was like Wave Walker was standing right in a vertical position and the mast of the Wave Walker was horizontal to the surface of the water. Then suddenly a wave came and hurled her upright, means jerked her, and the Wave Walker became horizontal. Vertical position it became horizontal on the surface of the water. Now when this happened, he was tied to the Wave Walker by a lifeline, means like the jackets and all, and we just tied up with a string to the ship when all this kind of situation arises. So now what happened? Now you just imagine. The narrator, previously, he went flying and into the water. Now, when he saw the Wave Walker earlier, the Wave Walker was sinking in a vertical position. Suddenly, from somewhere, a big wave came and it pushed the Wave Walker, and the Wave Walker became straight on the surface of the, horizontal on the surface of the water. Now, when the Wave Walker jerked up. The lifeline also got jerked. It became tight, and this fellow, what he did, the narrator, he caught the guardrails, means the rope with which it was tied, and again he again went flying into the air, and through the air he fell down into the main boom of the wave walker, means the deck area, that cabin's front part. There he fell down. Now after falling down over there, that was not the end. Again the wave walker was going on wobbling in the sea water. Okay, that Indian Ocean water, it was wobbling because heavy wave, and obviously a small boat, 30-ton is definitely weight ship, but still in comparison to the vast ocean it is nothing. So the waves were just going on wobbling the ship, and because of that wobbling, means shaking of the ship, what happened, this man, the narrator, who had fell on the wave walker's boom, he started tossing around. Tossing means like yes, you people have done these kind of things very often. I have seen, like, say for example, uh, you're going with your friend and you come across an empty bottle, and then you start kicking it with your leg. One does to the other and the other one does to the first person. Yeah, means you're playing that that particular empty bottle like a football between you two. Here also the same thing. The waves wobbled the ship, and because of that reason, our narrator, like a rag doll, means a waste material. What a rag means, rag doll, like a doll. Here it is a rag doll. I gave you an example of the bottle, empty bottle. He was hitting from one side to the other side of the deck. Did you get it, what I said? Means because of the wobbling of the ship, which happened because of the waves, this man who fell on the deck, from one part of the deck to the other part, he kept on rolling, tossing from one to other, tossing from one side to another. And you know what he was left with? His left ribs cracked. His mouth was filled with blood and broken teeth. Somehow I found the wheel lined up the stern for the next wave and hung on. A brave man. I don't know how many of we can do this. That is, his left ribs were cracked. His mouth was filled with blood and broken teeth. Just imagine his condition. And still, even after all those things, this man, he stood up on his leg, and then he somehow found the wheel. I told you what a wheel is. And then he lined up the stern, means he got the ship ready. Stern, the front part ready. Here it means that he got the entire ship ready, so that if another wave comes, they can ride over it, or they can handle the situation. Water everywhere. I could feel that the ship had water below, but I dared not abandon the wheel to investigate. Suddenly, the front hatch was thrown open and Mary appeared. "We are sinking," she screamed. "The decks are smashed. We are full of water." "Take the wheel," I shouted as I scrambled for the hatch. Water everywhere. You people have not gone through that particular ballad poem that we had in our syllabus earlier. It was a poem related to Mariner and Albatross, in which it was like the people were cursed, and then they were in the middle of the sea, and all around there was water, but not even a drop for them to drink. Here also same thing, but in a different situation, right? Here also water everywhere, and this water was really dangerous. He could feel, he says, that there was water everywhere, even at the bottom part of the ship. But he cannot leave the wheel to go and find out the situation. Then suddenly, the front hatch, means the cabin door, was where the wheel was, and the cabin door, it was having a curtain type. Hatch here means like the bamboo type of curtains we don't put. Just a chatai type that was thrown open, and his wife appeared over there. The poor lady, she don't even know that her husband went flying overboard and again came back flying, and he's having broken ribs, and he's having broken teeth, mouth is filled with blood. She don't even know what her husband had gone through, but she appeared there and she shouted, she screamed that we are sinking and the decks are smashed and we are full of water, means the ship is full of water. To that, this man, our narrator, he said that take the wheel. My dear students, take the wheel doesn't mean that pull out the wheel and take and go. Take the wheel means take the control of the ship. And then he shouted at her to take the control of the ship, and he scrambled for the hatch, means he just moved forward to remove the hatch to go and investigate. Let's have a stop here. I'll continue with the rest in the next video. Till then, goodbye and take care.